Really?
Makes it look down here that we're not even involved. Everywhere.
That's good. Well, good.
Excuse me, I have to start a meeting. I have to start a meeting.
Tell me, shut up.
I was trying, you ignored me. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you. Do we have any courtesy of the floor? None seen. Can we start with an update on Graysdale? Hi, how are you? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started with admissions. We still remain at an average of 672.1 for the month of March. Currently, we are at 676. We're slightly down a little bit in the Medicare, but that could change within the next month. There is always fluctuations with that. Everything else in admissions is pretty much around the same, slightly up on our Medicaid. Any questions on admissions before I move to finance? Okay. Finance, the cost per resident per day increased slightly from February to March, but numbers are not finalized until finance collects all the receivables at the end of April. We have seen a slight increase in our days in accounts receivable, but that will be going back down. And our case mix index does remain at 0.87. Any other questions before I move to Medicare reimbursement? Yes.
Why will the days in accounts be going back down?
Well, we want to reduce the amount of days. We have had some challenging issues with regards to collections, but we just had a pretty good amount. So for April, you're going to start to see those numbers come down a little bit where we're getting our collections quicker.
Can you speak more to the challenging issues?
Oh, well, challenging issues usually are, of course, non-payment or having to pursue, different avenues. Kennedy Law, which is our vendor, which helps us with collections to go ahead and get the monies that we need. Usual issues that most nursing homes face.
Are these private pay or from?
It's private pay, yes. Okay, any other questions? All right. Now we move on to Medicare reimbursement. Our Medicare reimbursement has increased, as you can see, on our average gross and also on our average net per diem. And our Part B revenue is the same as last month, only because, again, finance really closes in the end of April, and that's when you get the true number the following month. So you'll see that number change from March in April. Any other questions regarding Medicare reimbursement? Okay. Nursing, going into that section, our PPD is 2.94, so we're slightly up from what we were before. We have we have utilized aggressive recruitment strategies, meeting in conjunction with Human Resources, Nursing Administration, and Premier's Director of Marketing to provide new ideas to assist with recruitment efforts. And recently we did hire 14 new CNAs, 10 of which have retained and are continuing to work with us. Sometimes there are issues at the beginning of orientation and working, but we do have 10, and we do intend to have even more CNAs as well as nurses with our recruitment efforts. Any question about that? Yes.
I see that I'm looking at January, February, March. The LPN hours and the CNA hours seem to jump significantly from February to March as opposed to January to February. Reason.
Well, with regards, I thought somebody said something. With regards to the RN hours, it's because of the positions we still have available. Same thing with our LPN hours. And CNA, like I said, did increase. The hiring that we just did actually occurred in April, so you didn't see it in March, but you will see it in April. So as we recruit more, we will start to see our overtime hours go down.
And when you say hiring, that includes the 2-week training periods, or that's post to training period?
That's post to the training period.
Thank you.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
And is there any place that it's reflected how much of the hours were paid out in overtime, or?
Yes, it's right on these RN hours, LPN hours, and CNA hours under nursing in that, on those lines.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. All right, any other questions? Oh,
I was just going to throw my glasses away.
Okay.
Thank you.
any other questions before I go to agency costs?
I have one on the overtime, just to follow up with Mr. Heckman's concerns. If we look at the LPN, the hours, it went from 1,300 to 1,400 to 2,600. And then CNA, I see, 3,300, 3,300, and then that 5,700 for March. Did something happen in March that required that the overtime be increased by that many hours for those snowstorms? Was that?
No.
Well, there was a couple of snowstorms, that is true. We also are still looking again at our LPN and RN hours and trying to recruit. Even though we did recruit the CNAs, we still have to continue on our efforts to recruit RN and LPN, which we are, because we are working aggressively, like with Northampton County Community College, to go ahead and get some of its new graduates, and we're starting to see that. Of course, they don't graduate till May, so as you're trying to get them in and encourage them, you probably won't see that increase until, or decrease in overtime hours until May, possibly June. But we are, again, continuously recruiting all different types of nursing staff to come and work for us, which we weren't doing before. So that's a huge thing to remember. We, at this time, it's more well known that we have these positions available. Last year, there wasn't much recruitment being done. Any other questions before I move on? Yes.
Are the salaries comparable to the St. Luke's or Lehigh Valley, or are we having trouble recruiting because of salary?
Well, we do have comparable salaries, especially with regards to the CNAs and the LPNs and RNs. We've made some adjustments with that as well. Any other questions before I move on?
Mr. Cusick, do you feel like you had the answer to your question?
I think we did have 2 significant snowstorms. That would explain part of it. But I'm troubled by that trend for March. If I don't see those hours come back down to earth in April and May, I'm going to really be concerned.
Oh, I understand that. I mean, like I said, we're definitely working on doing our best to recruit staff so we can reduce the overtime hours. We also have been working, with regards to the, the LPNs and the CNAs and the RNs. We also have to consider the number of one-to-ones that we have. We do have 6 one-to-ones, which do affect it. We've managed to keep it at 6, but every so often, it does go up depending on the resident that we have if they need some type of behavioral assistance, and that could be a 24/7 one-to-one or a PRN one-to-one, and we're trying to reduce that as well.
I don't want to belabor it, but I do have a question. You saying things that happen properly. The one-to-ones, you kept it at 6. You're in the business. You look at what's going on in the trade across the board, private, public. Are you concerned, given population growth of elderly and also the ability for privates to sort of pick and choose who they want to take, that we would see down the road possibly an increase in that one-to-one?
We've had increases in the past. We've actually had as high as 12 one-to-ones. And we've managed, but what was happening, and the problem is that they were just leaving them on it. They weren't continually assessing them to see if they needed it. So with that now, yeah. And even if we have 6 one-to-ones, they're not all of them 24/7. I think 2 of them are. The rest are PRNs, which means as needed. So with that continual assessment, we're going to be able to reduce that and reduce the amount of hours needed for the staff.
I think it would be helpful, and I don't know if this is a stretch, when you give us those numbers, to be more specific, like how many of those are due to call-outs, how many of those are due to one-on-ones, how much is due to, attrition, like positions that just aren't filled, and maybe that would be the better answer?
Yeah, we could definitely do that. That's not a problem.
Yeah, it's there, but how does that translate to the actual hours? Is that what you're asking?
That wasn't my question. I'm just saying that if you look further down under Human Resources Nursing, some of that is addressed under FMLA, IFMLA, sick call-outs, and IFMLA again. And again, as I look at those numbers for March, FMLA is actually significantly lower, and sick call-outs also significantly lower. So those two numbers don't explain the significant increase in overtime for March, other than I think what I'm hearing is that this is a staffing shortage issue. It doesn't sound like it's a call-out issue. Am I correct in that assessment based on the numbers we have here?
Yes, we do have a staffing shortage issue, absolutely. It's also compounded by call-outs, IFMLA. These are all things that we're dealing with. Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Agency costs have been slightly increased in February, but the February and March numbers are the same only because, again, they have to wait for the end of April to get the true numbers and seeing how they're doing. It's gone down with the CNAs, but it has gone up with LPN and RN. Okay. If there's no other questions, I'll move to compliance and risk. In compliance and risk, we did have one complaint survey, but we did receive no deficiencies because it was unsubstantiated. Okay. Quality measures, if there's no other questions about compliance and risk. Quality measures are trending downward with the exception of decline in ADLs, which are your activities of daily living, weight loss, and pressure ulcers. We are aggressively focusing on pressure ulcers through re-education of staff on pressure ulcer protocol, utilizing best practices that work for Cedarbrook Nursing Home, actively recruiting nursing staff, and through audits conducted by nursing administration. We should begin to see reductions in pressure sores as a result of this. Any other questions with regard to quality measures? Okay, I'll move on. Satisfaction survey, we went up a little bit at 4.09, which we're doing well. And human resources nursing, we again are looking at decreases with our sick call-outs, but increases with our IFMLA and decreases with our FMLA. Our human resources nursing, our turnover rate slightly increased with RNs and LPNs, and CNAs went down. And our CMS star rating continues to be overall 3, regulatory compliance 2, staffing 4, and quality measures 2. Any other questions? Yes.
A lot of my questions are based on, I see on the, I've been on for years on the Lehigh Valley aging wise. So we get a lot of trends, things and that, and that's why sometimes I'll ask you the things I do. I know some of these things you do the best you can. When you were talking about the nursing staff and having to do overtime, I get it, while you're trying to get things going with more staff. What about outside agency nurses? How has that been trending up or down in hiring?
Well, yeah, that is mentioned under agency nurses.
Right, well, that's, I guess so. In other words, all right, I wasn't sure when you said agency, in my head I'm thinking that, so I wanted to just verify that. That's what that meant.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
And that's apparently staying relatively stable. And I mean, other than a drop for LPN, but as you said, you're waiting for April. I would guess. Well, let me ask you a question. How are the costs for agency nurses going? I mean,
Well,
we used to have to deal with this in the past, and it'd be difficult at times. And we juggle with overtime versus agency nurses.
Well, you definitely want overtime over agency nurses because agency is almost double the price. They don't know the resident. They're coming in cold, like I said, whereas the overtime, you have the existing staff who will go ahead and know the resident, and it is going to be less money.
And so overall, your goals are to drop that number as much as possible and have your own staff.
Right, to have zero agency.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
If I may. you like to introduce the directors?
I was gonna go ahead and do that.
She's gonna do that for you.
Sorry.
We'll wait for her turn.
It was under Grace that I thought it was.
Children and Youth, update?
Of course, what would it be like without bringing you paper? I just think you'll find it helpful in the top number. Just to have you familiar with this. You always check it.
If there are any further comments about beauty or age on any blogs or articles, Mr. Dolan and I were in the same college class, so take that for what it's worth if you're looking.
Now, that was your choice to disclose or not, so.
That's what all the ladies have said. That's what the ladies say, right, Kevin?
Going down the road, we should not.
Here, why don't I hand out your stuff?
Just hand them.
We could do that too.
I would.
Oh, you did bring paper.
Okay. Some,
Wait, these are all the.
I'm not going to go, I'm not going to go over all that's being handed out to you. I promised Mr. Heckman out in the hall that I would keep it short. I knew how to do bullets.
Years past, sometimes I'd see people's eyes.
I think I have,
We
I think I
probably
have more of the same or something.
While they're being handed out, I'll talk. There's some good things and some not so good things happening with the division. Just looking at the numbers here, this is a report I get every Monday on the number of children that we've had to remove and place in foster care. So let me just go through it, and we'll just settle on the final line with it. But this is how we keep track of our spending, at least on placements. You can see we brought, last week we brought 2 children into care. The court returned 1. We had a total on Monday of 269 children in care. 159 of them were with vendors, which is Kids Peace, Easton Children's Home, Pine Brook, Children's Home of Reading, just for as a few examples. We had 8 in Northampton County foster homes, which we want. I will explain that to you in a minute. The more important figure is that we had 100 of those children with relatives, which is where we want to go, especially with everything we're learning about trauma-induced placement. And what I want to say, even with me doing this for so long, in the days past, I always thought I was doing the right thing, getting a court order and placing children in foster care. But the research is starting to show us that the trauma, even though we felt good that we put the child in a safe place and that we saved the body, but what happened was we destroyed the mind. And as we're talking to the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds who have come through our system, they are telling the researchers, they're telling us how much we really messed up their minds by putting them in although a caring, but a strange foster home. So we are now making large efforts to make sure that we find relatives for the children to go with rather than foster care. So that's why the foster care numbers for Northampton County have dropped down. You'll see there's 27 children in congregate care. That's residential facilities or group homes. I'm going to talk to you about that in a moment because there's a new, once again, there's a new federal law, and it could be could cost us some money. Yes.
How is congregate care different from a vendor?
It's a duplicate because congregate care, a child that's placed at Kids Peace in a residential treatment facility, there would be considered congregate care. So there is like a somewhat of a duplication with that. But congregate care is you start at the lowest level and go to the most severe restrictive setting for children, and that's congregate care for them. We have 2 children on runaway that we have bench warrants out, and all the police are looking for them. So whenever the police come across them, they'll notify us. In our emergency unit, we go 24/7. The emergency unit will go out and bring them back in. You'll see it's if you average it out, it's $72.82 per child. And right now, each day, for those 269 children in care, we are paying $19,442.09 a day for those children to be in care. So again, when we talk about budgets, sometimes when I come before you, and I think I've mentioned it in the past, that number could be 269 on Monday, and by the time I leave on Friday, it could be 275, which is going to blow that column on the far right out of the water, which is why sometimes I can't give you an exact prediction on what our budget is going to be because of the children. Whatever is happening in the community is going on. We've had 1 death and 4 near deaths so far this year. We have a near-death review this Friday, tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And by the federal, with Sandusky, they passed Act 33, which requires each county to bring a panel of neutral citizens together along with other professionals to look at the case, review the case. Everybody signs a confidentiality agreement, and to review the case and report back to us right there at the meeting on what their thoughts were on how we handled that case. One I can mention because it was in the newspaper, the only one that I can. It was kind of sad, but had a good ending. Was a 3-week-old. Now picture a 3-week-old baby. 3-week-old baby that had a heroin overdose. Thank goodness, as the emergency, the ambulance, the emergency squad was taking the baby to Lehigh Valley Hospital, they were able to radio ahead to the emergency pediatricians, and they were able to figure out what would be the right dose of Narcan to give to a 3-week-old to bring the 3-week-old back to life. And with all congratulations to Lehigh Valley, the pediatricians at Lehigh Valley Hospital, they did bring the child back to life. So the child is alive. So that would be a near-death experience that we would evaluate with the community team. Numbers are on track with last year. I round up, we had 6,940 calls. So I usually say we had 7,000 calls. And we're about on track with that again this year. That's a negative and positive in that at least the numbers aren't going up. But it really really presses the staff on handling all these cases. In the hallway, we were talking, some of us were talking, red tape is driving the staff crazy. I gave an example of to a few of you. If we got a call, and you're familiar as a mandated reporter, now that it's a felony if you fail to report, if we receive the call from you, from the school teacher, the school nurse, your local doctor, maybe a police officer, everybody is going to make a call on you. So there are 4 reports. And the way the state has set up the computer system is that the staff have to do a safety assessment, a family service plan, case notes, and some additional information on each one of those referrals. And if it's unfounded, we're going to destroy the whole thing after they put all that time into it. It's crazy, and it's driving the staff crazy.
So I have 2 questions on that. The first is, those calls, do they come directly to you, or do they go to the intake and referral center?
They first go to Childline. The way it's set up now with mandated reporters, Keep Kids Safe PA, most of the professionals use, or the 1-800-932-0313 number. So Childline gets it, and then it immediately comes to Northampton County for us to sort out whether it's going to be a child abuse investigation or whether it's going to go into the General Protective Services unit.
Kevin? Is the child line and the child abuse hotline 2 separate things?
No, they're the same thing.
Yeah, okay, I
Yeah.
always knew it as that, but that's what I was curious.
Childline, yeah.
Do you see more, or is it trending up? Or I know as years have gone on, the hotline. That do you is the hotline? Well, I guess it would be, but as a proportion to what you get direct calls, people calling into the county number, I would think you get a lot of child.
We do, but because of Sandusky,
Yeah.
it has changed because the professionals are reporting everything to Childline,
Yeah.
whether it's we
As
had
opposed to the early days when they wouldn't report anything.
right. Well, we had one where 2 brothers were fighting, and one hit the other with the pool noodles that you use, and the school teacher called it in. So just the shock that the parents have to go through, even though they're totally innocent in that, and there's really even no injuries, but the worry they have to go through, because the scary part is you're the guys that take children away, and oh my gosh, I hope you aren't going to take our children away.
Your point is, even though on that very innocent thing you just mentioned, you still have to, and this is the manpower thing, you have to go through all of what you were just telling Ms. Hefner. The whole thing, regardless of the caseworker's judgment of, well, this is really nothing, but now you have to go the full game plan.
Yep, all those reports have to be done.
Yeah, Kevin, if I may, okay? Thank you, Lord. There's a common thread with the HR programs, with human services programs. It's all that child abuse, sexual predators, heroin addiction, gambling, alcoholism, bankruptcies, that all comes into the same plane, correct?
Yep.
So
the families have multi-problems.
it's just not about 1 or 2 things. Every one of our agencies has a common thread that's connected, and we have to address that somehow to take care of it.
Yes, and I'll tell you, Ms. Wondolowski is tremendous with keeping all the directors together and all the programs looking at each other and seeing how we can interact and help. And on the plus side also, we have a great bunch of directors that everybody helps everybody out with the cases. So it's not like in other counties. I mean, we really get along and work as a team. And I think it's our leader also with her style that really helps us produce.
Okay, well,
Tara, did you have a question?
I wanted to know if you had any trainings for teachers in the various school districts to limit the number of calls that they make in so that they're not making purpose.
Well, you know,
They're trained on it and they know what they should do and what they shouldn't do. I've seen some of that in the school districts as well.
and a number of the school districts have been bringing in their the firm that the legal firm that they hire to do it. Like King Spry does a lot of training for the school districts, but sadly, the bottom line is the teachers, and I just heard this from an attorney, a school attorney the other day, that they are so scared of having a felony brought against them and ruining their career that it's like, you know what, you're the guys that can make the call, we're, on whether it's abuse or not, so we're calling it in.
Because that, I mean, just because that's resources that you're using, also, like you mentioned, that's trauma to parents.
Mm-hmm.
That
It
fear
is.
of being
It
investigated
is.
by children and youth is real.
And I hammer that into my staff, that you don't realize the authority that you have. Like, parents get very scared of you because of the power that you have to remove their children,
Yeah.
even though that's not going to happen. And right near the end, I want to go over a special project that we've been doing a whole paradigm shift over the last 3 years in child protection, and I just want to cover one tiny column of the handout that I gave you.
Can I ask another question before you move into that? My last question is, and especially because I went to CCAP this year and I went to the Human Services Committee and they specifically addressed the casework and the Sandusky. And so I wonder, they said there's there's push from them. I know the governor's made a statement. I know the Attorney General's office is working, the Auditor General. Has there been any movement or anything that's come down to reduce the type of paperwork? Because I know everybody's talking about it and everybody's looking at it, and we're all waiting. But what's the change?
If anything, they added another form.
Okay.
But
Guess we gotta
the
go
other
back
thing
and
to forewarn you on, so you're braced for it. I spoke to Amy Gilly from the Auditor General's office on actually Wednesday. That would have been yesterday, right? Yeah. And the Auditor General is about 3 weeks away from issuing his final report. And the preliminary, it's going to run close to the preliminary. It's not going to be a pretty report, but I can tell you in talking to the other 66 children and youth administrators across the state, in a way, although it blasts us, we're embracing it as a positive because it's things that we've been saying for years, and finally we have a neutral person, neutral professional looking at this and saying, yeah, this is what's been going on. So to the administrator, it's like, yeah, thank goodness someone's finally saying the emperor's not wearing any clothes with it.
Or if I may just throw in, so you guys all know that if you didn't know, a letter went to the Auditor General, and we also talked to Congressman Cartwright about this, which I gave to the new directors and to Kevin. I think you received a follow-up on it because Kevin had addressed in September of last year 3 areas that had to be that were of concern, and all 3 are being addressed in the Auditor General's program right now.
Correct.
So there are this county made some impact through being proactive. Okay, I just want you, those of you that weren't here, you should know that.
There's a piece in there I'm not going to cover on enhanced legal representation. The state Supreme Court is pushing that the guardian ad litems and the family parents that are appointed go out and see the child. I can tell you Attorney Mellon, as a guardian ad litem, has been driving out to the residential facilities with my caseworkers to talk to the children that he represents. We've been working on protocols, especially Ms. Wondolowski has been really liaisoning with the courts, and we're working on protocols with the courts, but what it means, the courts are asking that we have attorneys in motions court, in PFA court, in custody court, or available for them. So I would say our legal work has almost doubled in the last 6 months. It has really increased, and I wanted to prep you with that. There's another federal law. All these laws keep on coming out. It will impact us in the end. There's a federal law that says that states that the agency must send out a professional, usually a fiscal person, to visit each facility and besides inspecting it, pull their invoices and check the children that we have there and match the invoice, the child's name, to the amount of services that were given and the case notes to make sure that we weren't being double billed, or if they only did one family or individual session during the week and they billed us for 3, we know we got gypped on paying for 2 reports. But that is a tremendous amount of work, and we have one person doing it now, but it's pretty overwhelming for her. And then I want to finish up with this handout I gave you. It's oh, you don't have one? Okay. And all I'm going to do is ask you to go to the Crisis and Rapid Response family meetings. The first, please take time to read this. I'll tell you what's nice about this. This is the Family Engagement Initiative. The Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court, looked all across the state and said, what counties are ahead of the curve that we can have them pilot this project. And this is the paradigm change I've been talking about, because it's not placing children. And Northampton County was picked as one of them. So it's a feather in our cap that we did. I spent Monday with Judge Barada, the masters, my entire family engagement team down in Hershey, with the state Supreme Court staff going over this project. But here's the change, and it's rather big. And I have a family group decision-making unit now of 8 within the agency. So I'm just going to read that, and this is the end for me. In 2017, the Pennsylvania State Roundtable selected crisis and rapid response family meetings as a core component of the Family Engagement Initiative, which we have been chosen for. The Family Engagement Initiative is designed to assist select counties in furthering collaborative efforts to enhance family engagement practices within the child welfare system. Both crisis, that means my teams go out immediately in 24 hours, or rapid response, which is 72 hours. Family meetings involve gatherings, family, kin, community supports, quickly, directly following an emergent event that will likely result in an out-of-home placement for the child. This inclusive family approach is designed to not only give the family a voice, but to actively involve the family in decision-making. This approach strengthens partnerships between family and child welfare professionals with the common goals of safety, permanency, and well-being. The goal of the family meeting is to address the immediate safety threats that are lending to the need to remove the child from the home. In some instances, the family meeting may eliminate the safety concern and the need for out-of-home placement. In other instances where the safety threat remains and the child must be placed, the family meeting can help reduce trauma through kinship placement and maintenance of family community connections. So I'll give you an example of one where we did a rapid crisis where the child himself suggested that his school teacher might be the best placement for them. And after the whole family, we had the whole family, everybody in together, and the school teacher was there, and the school teacher said, yeah, I'm in, count me in. And the parents said, yeah, you know what, we've been talking to the school teacher, we've been meeting with them, we know our son really likes the school teacher, we don't mind that the child is placed with the school teacher. So that whole avoidance of going to a strange foster home was eliminated. And we've done 19 so far of these rapid crisis responses, and 67% of them have resulted in children not going before the court and into foster care. But that's the big new push and the paradigm change in the system, and the courts are on board with us, and they come to all the trainings, and actually they ask more of the questions of my caseworkers than probably my program directors ask of the caseworkers in trying to make sure that we can find a placement for the children with a family member rather than foster care. So that's where we're at right now.
Thank you very much.
Can I have a question?
Very briefly, because I have another report.
Okay. Good luck with all your paradigms.
Thank you.
Anyway, I want to get to the nut of the matter, and maybe Ms. Wondolowski will be touching on it. You won't have to get it. The big issue always, recruitment, retention. How is that looking? I mean, just in general right now, briefly, so Ms. Hefner doesn't get upset with me.
Well, it's a yin and a yang. The positive is, with all the new staff we're bringing in, the only thing they know is the paradigm change. It's continuing to happen. On Monday, I was down in Hershey, and my phone goes off, and I have an immediate resignation. And it was from a staff member that we've only had there for several months. But what she said is, my God, I never thought that the child protection system was like this, that it was this intense, this court involved. It's not what I bought into, and I want out today. So there was a vacancy right there. Had a vacancy, individual got a job teaching at one of the charter schools with a $10,000 increase. Summer off, and it's 5 minutes from his home. I thought, geez, I'll take the job with it. So we are losing staff. The paperwork, as I had said, the red tape is probably what drives them out. I know we were talking out in the hallway. I think money will help to a small degree, but I continue to say, and my goal has not been reached. When I met with them on January 4th, I said my goal for the year is to bring it down, your caseloads, from one caseworker to 9 cases, because with the amount of work that happens, they go home at night so worrying that they missed something or they didn't get the paperwork done, and they just fret all night long, and it just begins psychologically to build up on them. And my sense is, if they can put their arms around the amount of work that they have to do and walk out the door, which is never 5 o'clock, because we go to 7 and 8 with all the craziness that goes on. But when they finally get in the car to drive home, they can say, you know what, I got almost everything done today that I wanted to get done, and I feel good about what I did with my job. And I think when that happens, we are going to see the turnover decline.
Thanks so much, and thanks for all you do. And the next time when you come back, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the different vendors and the congregate care and just the kinds of placements or the kinds of needs some of these children have. And you don't have to do that today, but just it'd be interesting to hear how many of them are drug affected, how many of them have mental health issues, behavioral, or just need another home. So thank you very much for that.
Sure.
In hindsight, I should have allowed Ray to introduce our new admissions coordinator at Graysdale. Sorry about that. Thanks for your patience. So, as you all know from last month, Jennifer Stewart King was promoted to our assistant administrator, and that left the admissions coordinator position vacant. And we recently promoted Mike Colon. So I just wanted to invite him up to say hello real quick, and but he will be brief, I promise.
I promise I'll be brief.
Mr. Cologne's used to public meetings and councils.
Every now and again.
Every now and
Good
again.
evening, everyone. Michael Colon, my current role at Graysdale. I've been running the volunteer department in the facility for the last 5.5 years with the county, coming up on 8 years, and more importantly, looking forward to coming into the admissions office and picking up, continuing what Jennifer Stewart King has been doing for the last few years. And everyone here knows how to reach me if need be. And thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome again.
I told you he would
And
be
he's
brief.
walking out the door.
No, you guys-
That was great.
Okay, you're good.
He's like, I'm out.
See you later. Kevin, you don't have to stick around either, but you're welcome to. Does anybody have any follow-up questions based on the earlier presentations?
Do we have a director of nursing at Graysdale?
We do. That is on my list. So Graysdale is first on my list because even though Ray presented, I have maybe the more fun stuff. So Inga Matei, and hopefully I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, was recently hired as our new director of nursing. She is not a Graysdale employee, so she is coming to us externally. Her start date is May the 7th. It's my understanding she will spend the first 2 days in Graysdale orientation, and then we'll have no choice but to hit the ground running. So we're really looking forward to that, and our 2 assistant DONs to be able to do their jobs. Questions? Okay. That actually was 1A on my list. I already introduced Mike. So I just wanted to mention briefly the recruitment strategies that we are using for Graysdale. We have a Facebook page. So for anybody on Facebook, please like and share our page. We actually have found that we had posted the information about the CNA training program, and Jenny Repsher over at Graysdale can run the analytics, and it had been shared or viewed 10,000 times. So it was amazing. And we actually are now seeing the first batch of folks who come in and on their application, how did you hear about us? Facebook or some of the other methods. So that's working. And so we're also going to set up an Instagram account to do the same thing. And Graysdale does have a website, which not everybody knows, but we are working with Conduent to significantly improve that in order to better utilize it as a marketing tool. That is a long-term project, because that's how it goes with IT here, but we will get it done. Tuition assistance program, I was here to discuss last night. We're doing job fairs now. There's a morning call job fair. There's been some at the colleges. We are hooked up with CareerLink in Allentown and soon to be Easton, and they are promoting our CNA program. And then I could go on and on, but we're doing a lot. So that's something we are really striving to do, but also focusing on retention. So we're starting to, we already have a lot of great employees. We're getting more. We need to retain them. So that's certainly the focus there. Any questions?
Do you want to speak about the mattresses very briefly? No, I know you don't want to. We should probably bring it up.
Well, so the Graysdale Advisory Board met last week, and Ms. Fargo Hefner and I and Becky Bartlett went on a little field trip to the basement, which if you haven't been, you should go. Okay. I took a field trip to the morgue yesterday because I
I'm
felt
not
the need to
going there
see
with
it.
you.
I did, and I made them open it. I did. Okay, so mattresses. So we tested out the mattress. We did. It was an experience. Honestly, I was expecting them to be so horrendous that it wasn't as bad as I thought. However, that was a 2-minute period of my lifetime. So maybe you could.
I sure
She sure did.
I didn't think it was the most comfortable thing. I didn't think it was a rock. You know, you hear two things about it. What I didn't like, and we agreed, is that there was a study that was given to us by a pro mattress proponent who shall go unnamed. And they said anybody who thinks that these mattresses are the problem is like out of their minds. And so honestly, the test gave a weight range of 180 pounds to 240 pounds for these mattresses. Clearly, there are some Greystone residents who go beyond those limits, and so it doesn't address what happens after that. But I don't
Some
think
of our
they're
totally frail and folks.
And I do think it's still a multifactorial problem, because we did address situations, like they propped me up to like less than 45 degrees, which is fine. But I know visiting my dad in the hospital, you never really are at that angle. If you want to sit up and watch TV, you have to eat. So what they did say is if somebody was at that 90-degree angle for an extended period of time, it would affect their sacrum after a period of time. So that, along with staffing, could really be contributing to the problem. So
We met.
I would say the mattresses aren't out of the woods yet, but they're not as horrible as I thought they would be.
They're not out of the woods, however. But too hard, too soft. Just
It would
right.
not be just right.
It's
It would
not
be
just right. However, so we had Mr. McClure and I have a monthly meeting with the folks from Premier and now Jennifer Stewart King, and I forced them to extensively try to explain some of the wound stuff to me today, and I won't go into great detail, but because it's frankly very complicated. And so there are a lot of factors. The good news is we had a lot of wounds resolve in March, and we have certainly a ways to go, but we have, it's about a 2-page sort of corrective action plan, if you will. That's not really fair to call it that, but to address the issue of wounds. So it's certainly a absolute top priority to decrease it, but it is multifactorial, and the residents' health conditions and nutrition intake also greatly impact the wound issue.
I have a question then first.
ahead.
So, I mean, I realize with this mattress thing, there's a couple. One is from the administrative standpoint of how the contracts came and how we bought them, which really, to me, that's not your concern. That's for the most part. My concern, though, is the actual functionality of and I know with the adjustable air, which is now pretty much everywhere at most places. Will you be watching over time? And yes, it's multifaceted, but that the new type of mattresses designed to relieve pressure in one spot, how that may contribute. I mean, we're going to be looking at that as we go along, correct?
Absolutely,
Yeah, okay.
and they're going to have
And training, I mean, as well as staff.
No, for sure.
Because I know in a nursing home situation, personal situation of mine, it was supposed to be checked, and I went and this thing was like, it had gotten sentient intelligence, and it was, and I had to call in, and the nursing assistant had forgotten to do
Sure.
her thing. So I mean, human error does still play into these things, and that's
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're working on staffing. Obviously, we do need to strategically add staff in certain places. We also need to manage our what we have and get the most out of what we have. But the mattresses will certainly be looked at absolutely as a big part of this process. The other thing we talked about today, which hasn't been looked at in a while, is newer and more improved incontinence products that are another factor. So that is going to be explored, of course, newer and better are more costly. So we will certainly take a careful look at that. But if that can help us, it's obviously something that we will look at very closely.
Anything else?
About the mattresses?
About anything else?
I have a little list. It's not a lot, I promise. For our drug and alcohol division, there is a rally for the Valley coming up. And you know what? The date is not on here. I am sure it is May 19th. If I'm wrong, I will let you know. It is at Cedar Crest College. And it is modeled after something they had done in D.C. a few years ago. I think in 2014 they started around there. And it's, you know, like a music fest on a one-day small-scale celebration for folks in recovery and modeling unity in recovery. So Northampton County Drug and Alcohol Division is always, you know, one of the sponsors of that. So I've heard it's a pretty cool event. So I just wanted to let folks know about that. And the Outstanding Senior Award celebration is 1 week from today. That's the 26th, I think. I mentioned that last month. So if anybody is interested in attending and doesn't have the details, shoot me an email. Let me know. It's at the
right?
the Methodist Church.
I know.
On 512. Okay, you're welcome. 1 o'clock, Wesley United Methodist Church, Center Street in Bethlehem. I know I had it written down. 3 more quick things. For the aging division, as you know, we're all working on digging out of that hole. Recently, we got information back regarding assessments that we completed for folks in the month of February. And there were, I believe, 15 of those. And out of 15, we achieved 100% compliance in timely assessments of people. So we're getting there. We're getting there. Our MHMR administrator position is still vacant. That was my top priority when I got here. We had a candidate where civil service does not move to my speed. So we are still waiting on civil service. So I would love to come back next month with an answer. We'll see. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, some of you know about this, the Stepping Up initiative. The goal of that is to reduce the number of folks in jail with mental illness. So I believe this had been discussed with some council folks in the past. Brian Watson, who is our acting MHMR administrator, was going to reach out to the folks who he had discussed this in the past. So we are going to, you know, see if that takes us anywhere. So if that's something that folks have an interest in, we would love to pursue that. So, does anyone have any questions?
That Mr. Dolan left. You can answer it. The courts. Everything happens in children and youth is so court heavy and related, and the relationship with the courts can mean the difference between a lot of things. He was saying you've been meeting and discussing. How are those meetings, as much as you could say at a
Sure.
public meeting, how have those
Fair
meetings
enough.
been going with the courts?
Well, when I arrived, there was maybe some tension, we'll say, between the agency and
That's
the
a
court.
polite word.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's good.
I try to be polite. Be polite until polite doesn't work. And so Judge Barada had reached out to me, and ultimately we ended up with a challenging situation with Judge Sletfold. So I actually spent some time in her chambers and worked through that. But what ended up happening in the last few weeks ago. Several of us from Children and Youth, our attorney and whatnot, met with 4 of the judges, and it was an extremely productive meeting. It went far better than I think we could have all expected, and I think, like most problems in life, it comes down to communication issues. So what we have done is tried to set up some not policies, but memos of understanding or something to figure out how to communicate better. Thank you. Framework. So, and now the judges know that if they have an issue and they feel it's not being resolved, they know they can call me. and they know they're going to get an answer.
I mean, and in fairness, that's an issue that I don't know of one human services director, present company included, who didn't find it challenging.
Absolutely.
But that's going to be ongoing, but the fact that you're tackling it.
Absolutely, and I think.
I think that's good that you have the direct. And,
Right. I think I've been able to establish a very good, thus far, working relationship with a few of the judges, and we'll be utilizing Judge Barada for a very big project coming up with children and youth, but we'll talk about that in the future. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anything else? Do I need a motion, or I just adjourn it? Just adjourn. Come back at 6:30. And this is extra, that extra packet, or a piece of a packet? You want? I think it's coordinated